Okay, let's talk a little bit about the other assignment that's due this week, which is the Chapter 1 Essential Questions. So again, this is really, the text is helping to guide your reflection and add knowledge to your base, and have you question some of the things that you may or may not have been doing either with children or that you're thinking you might want to do with children. And so we want to look at this. So one of the first things I want you to do is I want you to kind of reflect back upon your own learning experiences. I want you to think about what style your parents used, how it impacted you, how it might influence how you want to work with kids now. This is really your time to kind of unpack your own baggage and your own bias that might be around the role of discipline. So a lot of times when I'm working with students face-to-face in the classroom, we talk about whether or not we appreciated or liked how we were disciplined. Now, what we also need to recognize in all of this, most of our parents probably were not educated in research and child development. And so unless you're coming from a teaching background where your parents were teachers or early ed providers or anything like that, they were just probably going by what their cultural norms were or how they were raised or how their community and society that they lived in was raising children. And so it really is that impact. Because we're going into the field, what I want you to really recognize in this is there are things we might choose to do as parents or family members that are different than when we take this on as a profession. We need to know what the research says. We need to understand that there's multiple techniques, but we also need, in order to be successful in the classroom, a better understanding of what our triggers might be and what our tendencies might be. And this is your time. I'm not looking for, 20 pages, but I am looking for something substantial. You going back, maybe giving some examples that help you identify and can support your claim. So if your parents were permissive, what makes you say they were permissive? Don't just tell me, oh, I was raised by permissive parents and kind of that be the end of it. Give some examples that help you identify their actions with how permissive parenting and discipline was discussed in the text. And again, always try to relate things back. I'm not looking always for quotes from the text, but I would prefer some page numbers so I can go back. If it's not making sense to me, I can reread that part of the text and say, oh, I can see now why you were relating it to that part of your journal. The next area for this week is to check out this website on Native American and European values. And so I want you to look at that website, and then I also want you to read Chapter 1 and then think about this question. So what are your top 4 values for the children in your life? Again, be specific and explain your choices and relate it back to what you saw on the website and in the text. So again, I'm looking for a short essay, maybe 2 to 3 paragraphs. The next is the heteronomy scale. And so that's also in the text. How do you rate yourself? How does that impact your approach to child guidance? And again, this could be a little bit briefer, but I want you to kind of understand where you might fit on that. And then finally, for this week, it's looking at the different parenting styles that we might see in the media. So try to find an authoritarian, an authoritative, and a permissive style of parenting. The funnier the better if you want. Our comedy on TV is hilarious. You could look at dramas, whatever you watch or could relate to, whether it be real or cartoon, it doesn't really matter. Just, we need to recognize that we're seeing these, having you, especially if, say, you were raised in a permissive family and you're still around a lot of permissive people, it's important for me to know that you can identify what the differences are and give examples that would support them. And so tell me your choice, and explain why you think it's that choice, defend it, if you will, by connecting it back to the text. Talk about the impact that you see on the kids in the show, and then also think about how media may or may not be influencing parenting over time. So do you think that how parents raised children 40, 50, 30, 20 years ago is different than today because of what we're seeing in media? And how might that impact then our classrooms? So that's what I'm looking for Sunday. And again, You can type right under each one of these so that I know what you're covering. So you don't have to write a separate essay for each and drop like 3 or 4 things in. You can go like right under parenting styles after these questions. You could indent and then put your responses right on there so then I can see where you're relating things to. The biggest thing for me is always citing the text or your resources used. I'm not necessarily looking for either MLA or APA formatting for citations. If you're using the text, just put text page 32. That's all I would need to know. I don't need the full citation. If you're using something from D2L, just tell me which it is from D2L, like, this article, and I can go back and reread that. If you do use a website or art resource that's not in the D2L or the textbook, you need to give me the web link and where on that website so I can navigate and see what resource you're using. The biggest thing also is to have you practice not plagiarizing. I'm not looking for a bunch of quotations. I'm looking for your interpretation of the material you're using within this. And so that's why if you're giving me the link in a citation, if I go back and it's word for word, that's not okay because that's plagiarism. I want your words in this. So I will give you feedback on this in the feedback box, but I wanted to make sure that all of you understood what this what the chapter assignments and essential questions are like. They're going to be fairly similar to this kind of a format as we go through each of the chapters. So I probably won't do quite as an extensive video on each chapter essential questions unless there's specific questions on an area that you need more help with. So I hope this was helpful, and thanks. And I look forward to reading these. They're due on Sunday night at midnight.